जय जय श्री राधे, श्री वल्लभाधीश की जय, श्री गोवर्धननाथ जी की जय हो। सभी वैष्णवन को हार्दिक सप्रेम सादर जय श्री कृष्ण, जय जय श्री राधे। Today is the 54th day of the reading of the stories of the 84 Vaishnava disciples of Sri Vallabhacharya and we are reading today Varta number 41, the story of Anand Das and Vishwambar Das, Kshatriyas from Prayag. Bhav Prakash. The internal meaning. In the eternal Leela, these two are Kumarika Sakhis. Anand Das is named Nagari and Vishwambar Das is Malika. They were born into a Kshatriya home in Prayag. They were both very disinterested in material life even from their childhood. They were not fascinated by food, clothes or bodily comforts at all. They ate and wore whatever their parents gave them. If their parents gave them some fine clothes to wear, they would go to the riverbank and roll in the mud. Their parents were angry with them, insulted them and beat them, but they said nothing. If their parents gave them some jewellery to wear, they would take it off and hand it over to some Brahmin or sadhu. They would not even speak to their parents. The only thing that they ever said was, "What is the point of fancy food and clothes? Please talk about something more than this." The parents were displeased by this. Then the parents got Ananda Das engaged. He told their parents not to bother because he was a renunciate. They did not listen but made the wedding arrangements. One day before the wedding, Ananda Das said to his younger brother Vishwambar Das, "Our parents won't listen. After my wedding they will arrange yours and then we will both be in jail. What to do?" The younger brother replied, "Let's leave the village and go somewhere. Then we can be saved." That evening they sat in a boat to cross the Sri Yamuna river and travelled to Chitrakoot on the other side. They enjoyed the forest environment and stayed there for 8 days, eating the fruits of the forest. The mother and father searched everywhere in the village. The father then heard the story that 2 young boys were living in Chitrakoot. They went to Chitrakoot, arriving on the 9th day. Seeing the condition of their sons, they ordered them to go home with them. They promised not to perform their marriages. "Look, we are old. Stay with us until we die, and then do what you want. You are too young to be living in the forest." The brothers objected that childhood was the very best time to live in the forest, but that they would accompany their parents back to the village on condition that they did not try to get them married off, nor pester them about it. They would do it if they wanted to. "You should tell us off if we were thieves or the like, but we are simply renunciate by nature, and that is how we are happy. We like renunciate people, and you always try to stop us from associating with them, and thus we left home." The father replied that they should come home, and there they could do as they liked, and they would not bother them. 2 brothers accompanied the father home. They went home, had some refreshments, and then went off to find holy discourses to listen to. They would sleep on the ground and didn't care about their bodily comforts. One day the 2 brothers were sitting on the banks of the Sri Yamuna river, discussing some religious principles. "Oh, brother, nearly our whole life has sailed past without our even getting to know the Lord. We have heard many discourses, but it's nothing that really stuck out in our minds. We are wasting our human birth, and may even have to become back through all the multitudinous species of creation. What to do? We can't find any solution." Conversing like this, they lost their patience and, sitting on the Sri Yamuna riverbank, began to cry, beating their heads with their hands. They became unaware of their bodies and lay there into the night. In the middle of the night, Sri Thakurji came to Sri Acharya and told him that 2 Kshatriya boys were lying in the sand on the riverbank. "They are suffering pangs of situation from me," he announced, "and if you do not go there to save them, they may soon die." Sri Acharya immediately woke up Krishnadas Meghan and some other Vaishnavas, and they all came to the riverbank. No one was around, but a boat was tied up there. They all sat in the boat. Sri Acharya told the Vaishnavas to row to the best of their ability, for that it was his wish to cross over the river in that boat. It arrived on the far bank just where the boys were lying. As soon as they saw him, they stood up. and honoured Sri Acharyaji and begged to be initiated by him. Sri Acharyaji answered that he would do so in the morning, but the boys objected, saying that they did not know if they would still be alive then. Anyhow, they had not eaten that day, and so there was no need for delay. We have met you by the Lord's grace. Why wait till morning, in case our fickle mind changes? Sri Acharyaji told them that there was no chance of their mind ever changing or being corrupted, for they were distinguished souls. They would have been pure even if they had eaten that day. Sri Acharyaji then initiated them with the Lord's name and the Brahma Sambandh. He sat down in the boat and took them across to his abode. In the morning, when Sri Acharyaji had bathed and completed the morning Seva, he went to the boys and told them to start serving the Lord. They replied that they had wanted to become renunciates. However, our mind is now fixed on what you say. Now we would like to stay in one place and serve the Lord. Sri Acharyaji gave them some water from the bathing of his feet and taught them his Sannyasa Nirnay treatise, Conclusions on Renunciation. Their love was already overflowing, and now it got firmly ensconced in their hearts. All their grief and anxiety was annihilated. Sri Acharyaji gave them some deity clothes that Sri Navaneet Priyaji had worn and told them to take them home and serve them. You can go home, but your mind will always be fixed on Sri Thakurji's pastimes. Worldly and scriptural considerations will never disturb you. The two boys took leave of Sri Acharyaji and went home. Their parents started to cry. Where were you these 2 days? You can't even have eaten. Please let us see you again at least once a day until we die. The boys asked them to give them a separate room to stay, then they might stay at home. The parents said that the whole place was theirs and that they could use it at their will, but the boys refused, insisting that their place be entirely separate from the house and that they would not come into their parents' room. They stipulated that their parents should also not visit them, otherwise they would leave the house. The parents gave them a separate area, and the two boys cleaned it well and set Sri Thakurji up therein. They cooked together, made their offerings, and then took the Mahaprasad. Then they sat and discussed the Lord. They became fully absorbed in such talks. They talked about what Sri Acharyaji had taught them about renunciation and also about the beloved's Leelas. In fact, they spent all their time filled with the nectar of the divine. The parents were also happy that the boys were at home, even if they could not see them. Part 1. When the two boys were engaged in such discussions, the younger brother used to fall asleep, and the elder one would continue to speak. Then Sri Thakurji would come there and say, as the reading went on. He thought that if he didn't do this, the elder brother might stop the readings. Then once the younger brother woke up and told the elder that he had heard up to a certain point, but that after that he had fallen asleep. The elder brother was surprised to hear this and wondered who had been saying, as he read. The younger one said he had no idea, since he had been asleep. The elder one realized then that it must have been Sri Thakurji himself. The two brothers were very happy to have the direct experience of the Lord. Thus the two of them were never involved in the world and had no worldly desires at all. So Anand Das and Vishwambara Das were great devotees and the recipients of Sri Acharyaji's great grace. Bhav Prakash. Here we learn that if one hankers after Sri Thakurji, the Lord will soon bless the devotee. Thus concludes Varta 41, the story of Ananda Das and Vishwambara Das from Prayag, although truly their tale has no end. Shri Vallabhadisha ki jai, sabko jai Shri Krishna, Radhe Jai Shri Radhe, Aaj ke Anand ki jai.